So welcome, Lida, to this podcast. I'm super excited to have you here with ES Talent Strategy, which is what I'm doing. My purpose is to empower companies in their hiring as well. And in this pursuit, I also want to do knowledge sharing. So with this, I'm interviewing people who are experts in hiring and have had a lot of experiences in this, and who else is better than you.
We will see.
for this. So for those who don't know, Lida is a serial entrepreneur. She has a decade of experiences in building and scaling startups as well. An example is Snacks, which was a healthy snack subscription company, which was then very successfully sold to Fel. And now with Lida's, and I can say it because I know you personally, characteristic, determination, ability, and experience, you're tackling the female health space, which has been very unexplored, I would say, until now, even though it's so important. Important to say about this, you are now doing Monix. This is a health tech. You're developing a groundbreaking biosensor technology. And this is for continuous and personalized hormone tracking as well. And this is a $1 trillion, I had to read it twice, $1 trillion blind spot in women's health. So what you bring is visibility and actionable data into this area. Also good to mention about you as well, Lida, is that you're a speaker, a mentor, advocate for female entrepreneurship and innovation in women's health, of course. On a personal level, we worked together a few years ago at a venture builder, and I've worked with many CEOs when it comes to hiring. What I remember from you very, very distinctly is you were surrounded by so much feedback and so much noise, and you were someone who would carefully be able to analyze the feedback and say, okay, does it serve my purpose? Does it serve the company's purpose or not? And I was always really, really impressed by how you managed
so
that.
Much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So
Great
thank
feedback.
you for coming, and yeah.
Thanks for having me. So maybe I can just give that, feedback or compliment back. I also remember working with you, and you were helping me for Snacks, hiring my first team members, right? We were hiring co-founders who were hiring the first hires, and I do remember enjoying working with you, and you had also this determination too. And I know I wasn't easy because we were under a lot of time pressure back then. We had to hire a couple of people in a very short amount of time. It was the end of the year, and then I was really stressed. But you were really also so determined, but also so focused in finding the solution that also stayed with me all these years.
Yeah, I loved it. So I'm happy to see you again for sure. And what I want to talk about first is really Monix. So I introduced it a little bit, but can you tell me more? What is Monix?
Sure. So Monix is a health tech or women's health startup building the world's first wearable biosensor that measures key female hormones, and we're starting with LH, luteinizing hormone, and progesterone in real time. And you will think of it as the CGM for hormones. It's a wearable patch essentially you wear on your arm, and you get your hormonal data and the feedback instantly on your phone. And we're building this as a medical device B2B a startup that will essentially integrate directly into the clinical protocols, empowering clinicians, but also women with continuous hormonal data that they never had before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And is there something, because this is a very important thing, actually I've never gotten my hormones measured, and I've gone through probably the whole journey of a woman in terms of hormones.
I don't think you went through all of them. There was still some missing. Trust me.
Yes.
You're young enough though to not grow them, to go through them yet.
Looking forward, from what I heard, it's fantastic. But was there an experience, conversation, event where you said, okay, I have to tackle?
So for me, how I started Monix, it was really a super analytical, less emotional approach and discovery and exploring phase. After Snacks, I knew I wanted to start over again. I knew I wanted to build a tech startup, but I was looking for a problem, a big enough problem. So what sparked the idea, or even, the direction, was around 2 years ago when I was sitting at the TED Talk, and there was this woman presenting on this massive data gap that you mentioned in the beginning. And I was sitting there completely stunned, thinking, how is this possible? So that was basically the first time I've heard of that. And that basically moved me into a rabbit hole where I started to do a lot of research and, looking into the space to see, what is the issue, what is missing. So I was looking into menopause, I was looking into hormonal health, reproductive health, and that's when I realized how much this field has been neglected in the past and how much is missing still. In German we say it was a grüne Wiese. So for me, I think that's when I knew, okay, I found that big problem that I was looking for.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So when I was looking into Monix and doing some research to know everything that you're doing before we chatted, but also on a personal level, it's becoming a bigger topic. And I was so shocked to find out, now I'm on a fitness journey with like running and strength training and so on, that so far women are treated as like smaller kind of men.
Yes.
We're not always smaller,
Yeah.
and we have nothing to do with men. So I'm not sure, why do you think that happened in research?
I think that is a big topic, right? This is so, as you say, and exactly with that picture that you described, everything is connected with that issue that in healthcare historically, women's bodies have been treated as the smaller version of men, and we had this assumption that whatever in treatments work in men, they will work also in women. And I mean, where does it come from? Historically, also with the medicine in early, I think, 1960s, when there was this medicine given to a pregnant woman as a treatment, as a safe treatment for morning sickness, and it caused a lot of birth disabilities. Also, there were over 10,000 babies born with severe disabilities, missing lungs, missing or limited organs. So that caused that the FDA banned a lot of women from, or let's say all of the women in the childbearing age from early stage clinical trials. So this is the history of it. Like one reason is the history plays a role. So, and even though later, I think it was in 1993, this ban was lifted, but the mindset stuck. So if you look at today's studies and research and clinical trial ecosystem, still less than 30% in early clinical trials are women. So this is, I think, the history of this catastrophic event that happened is still kind of shaping the space, but as well, I think there is this consistent myth that people believe also when you include women, it's just too complicated. So it makes the trials too complicated. And there are researchers, they argue that fluctuation in hormones, they just make data messy. So that's the reason why they basically exclude also. But I think this is backwards because exactly this fluctuation of the hormones is what we need to study in order to understand that, how the treatments and the medication is affecting women's bodies. And I think also another reason is also when you look at the clinical leadership, it's still mainly, dominated by males. Yeah. And interestingly, there are studies that show that if trials and studies are designed by women, they also, the participants are more women, and vice versa. So there is this bias also in how you design and who's designing the studies. And I think lastly, another reason is also, even though there are regulations that say we should include women in studies and in trials, there is not really persistent monitoring. Like you don't monitor what happens, or there are not even consequences for if you don't include women. So it's more like a nice to have, you should follow it, or optional rather than really like a reinforcement by law. So we need these things to basically also close and change the way we are running research and doing research.
Okay, but it's good. It's good to make advances on this and look at female-specific issues too. So, how would you say that you're bridging that gap in research right now with Monix?
So I think there are two fundamental values we're creating. So or we say value propositions. The first thing is, if you look at how hormone monitoring is how we monitor the hormone today, it's basically static snapshots with the blood draw, which don't really measure the hormones in the way they should be measured, since hormones are changing hourly, daily, right? The fluctuations, they matter, and we have basically, doctors have this single snapshot of data, and they try to make sense of that. And what happens is you get misdiagnosis, you have delayed results, you have cancelled treatments, especially in IVF, and that's our space. That's where we start, actually, also the journey of Monix, is because in IVF you have these two events. It's the egg retrieval timing and the embryo transfer, where at the moment it's basically done not precisely, and we are basically injection women with hormones to time them artificially. But also that shows that it's not the best method to do that, right? So once you have a device that can measure hormones and you get it instantly on your phone, and the clinician gets it on their dashboard, they can optimize timing for egg retrieval and embryo transfer in the case of IVF, but also with other conditions such as menopause or endometriosis. And there's so many other spaces that you could leverage this technology. Is you get basically truly personalized care, right? Because now doctors have real-time data they can base on their decisions. You can adjust medication in real time, again, personalized to every patient. So this is how we're changing that space, and from a clinical and diagnostic perspective. But then you asked me about the research. At the same time, it is a tool that could be leveraged in research, in hormonal research, to also contribute to finishing finally this data gap we're speaking. So how hormonal health studies are run today is, you can picture it, it requires women to go into the clinics, and do the blood draws. So you have to let the woman come in many days and many times, and so it's very costly, it's very invasive, it's not the most effective and efficient way of doing it, and that is limiting research. But now imagine you have the patch, you let the women wear it from anywhere in the world, you can monitor them, you have the data, so now you get access to a diverse population that you've never had before. You don't you save costs, and you can run parallelly a lot of studies and tests. So that will, I'm convinced, we can accelerate hormonal research with the biosensor. Yeah.
So accelerate hormonal research, which will then lead to a lot of innovation as well, and improvement for women's health.
Absolutely.
In general too. Oh, it's crazy, you always hear, you're hormonal, but do we really know? We are. There's no data.
But that's the thing, hormones has been always treated as this threat, like this black box, like nobody knows. It's just like this myth, hormonal, but what does it exactly mean? And this is basically this black box, or this invisibility, because we don't know. We don't have the terms, we don't understand it yet. There is really limiting data, but that's also one of the incentives and goals, to finally understand, the hormonal health and what is happening inside the woman's body, because hormones are driving, our entire metabolism, our brain functions, our immune responses. So it's a massive topic that we still don't understand.
Performance as well, work and sports, everything. And I like that you're focusing on IVF. I think everyone has friends who are going through the IVF process, and it's such a difficult one, and usually a long one too. So that will hopefully bring a lot of good
Absolutely.
To that process too. So you've received already a lot of attentions and awards. Is there any feedback that you've received that surprised you specifically?
I think what stands out the most for me was since the beginning when I started the journey, and I've been speaking about it specifically to women, the feedback and the reaction that I got, and it was this instant and immediate relief, kind of, oh my God, finally, I've been waiting for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then after also hearing some personal stories of women, how they suffered through different hormonal conditions, right? Some serious, some less serious, some, I mean, all of them are in one or other way impacting, your life. So, and when I speak with these women and just the reaction, that reinforces that we are basically building that can change a lot of lives as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that has this massive impact, and I think that was surprising. I didn't expect that in that sense or in that way. And it is universal. It's no matter who I'm talking to, and even if I'm traveling, I'm speaking or I'm talking about Monix, the reactions among women and also men, not only women, is always the same. Oh, that's great. We need that. Or also when, that was the surprise, I would say.
And also, research and experiences you hear from friends or relatives is that women are generally, when they have a complaint and they go to the doctor, they're less likely to be heard. And maybe it's this kind of missing data that we have, where doctors don't know 100%. What to look for.
100%. I think this is exactly this, when we're speaking about this massive data gap, but what does that actually mean, right? It's like always, okay, even like these big numbers that are presented and talked over and over, but what does that actually, in terms of the actions mean? And when you look at the way things are done today, in healthcare, even in gynecology or reproductive health, hormonal health, it's not that we're not measuring hormones. We do measure hormones, but we don't have the tools and the right tools to measure them. So the blood draw. And then what happens is your doctor takes your data, and the problem is it is basically compared against a broad, population average.
Mm-hmm.
So these are reference ranges that pull or put all the women into one basket.
Right.
Regardless of their age or health status, or also in which phase of the cycle they are, and then you hear, oh, but it's normal. Even if you feel the symptoms, the data shows that it's normal because you've been compared to with those average population ranges. So that is basically the big mistake here, because we have not, we don't have the data for personalized hormone profiles, and therefore we hear that we have to deal with it because the things we're feeling is normal.
No, I understand why I hear a lot. No, it's normal. It can be a wild range of things that I go through in the moment, and it's always normal. So I wonder what's not.
So it's a challenging topic, and even a challenging data to build on, right? And we lack this foundation. We need personalized data. We need hormonal profiles. We need to build baselines for the hormones. Mm-hmm. Also, we need to have better reference ranges, and we need to stop putting all the women in categories, or like in 1 or 2 or 3 categories, and say basically you are part of this category. So then you basically your hormone levels and data gets compared to that. And once we stop doing that, I think that is how we improve also, the treatments and the outcomes of healthcare.
Amazing.
Yeah,
that's great. So, talking about the entrepreneurial journey that you've had, and that I'm very sure you will continue to have for the years to come. Research shows that autonomy is a very, very big indicator, the trait of having autonomy, or the competence, as you want to see it, of whether you're going to jump into entrepreneurship. How do you see that? Have you been very autonomous?
It's interesting. I've never heard about that research, but I think that explains for me now a lot of things about myself. And I would say yes, totally, because I remember I did a test a couple of months ago, or maybe last year, like a personality test, and then there was a question about autonomy, and I think my results for autonomy, they went off the chart. So I I was higher than the highest score on the ranking, which shows that, yeah, from the beginning, I think I needed this autonomy, and that it's one of the main drivers what led me to entrepreneurship. And also when I think back, how I chose this path, after my university, I had applied for jobs and I even got one. And I was about to start at this consulting firm, and then I remember my brother came also at the same time to me, and he said, this is a business opportunity, let's start a business together. And then I decided to not, show up to my job, even though I already had signed my contract, and then start the entrepreneurship journey. Also, one of the main decision factors back then, and I was 26, 27, was, okay, I have autonomy over my own work. I have autonomy about my decisions, so I can actually build something on my own. I think, yeah, that drove me back then, and it's still driving me today. So I would totally support that study.
I mean, I wouldn't need a test to know that you possess the competence of autonomy. I think it's like super clear just from seeing you. But
really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it was part of like a broader personality test. And so one question was that about autonomy, but for me it was just funny to see that, that I was even like off the charts, and I'm like, okay, that's it's just a funny factor, but not a surprise, as you say. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, interestingly enough, sometimes in the corporate world, when they do references, if you see like a paragraph on autonomy, it's a little bit like, maybe difficult to work with.
Yes.
But I don't necessarily think so.
Okay.
Because entrepreneurs very autonomous, and yet they need to be able to group people around their purpose, around what they want to build in the most difficult conditions a lot of the time, or a lot less comfortable, I would say, than a 9 to 5. So how would you say that you, as someone who has autonomy, combines that with depending also on other people and bringing people in with you?
Yeah. Great question. So for me personally, autonomy, so there is different kind of autonomy, right? When you start off as an entrepreneur and in your early phase of building, and in your early phase of your startup, you have maybe 1, 2, 3 co-founders, and it's you guys do everything. Like you wear different hats, and you drive the business, and then you have the team, and then I think that's where there is a shift in autonomy. And I had to also learn how to execute this shift, and how to build on it, and what you say, right? How to have the autonomy, but at the same time enable people to have autonomy as well. So I had to learn to delegate, and that was not easy in the beginning, because I was so used to just run with whatever I wanted to do, like just go, and I know how to do it, or even if I don't know, I go and figure it out. And now you have a team, and you need to build the trust. You need to let them also do, and then for me, I've learned also that doesn't mean that I lose my autonomy, but basically I multiply autonomy, because the moment I create, this environment where my team gets enabled to take decisions, take ownership, move things on their own, get their own autonomy, I am, but aligned with my vision. So this is where I take the agency. It's more the overall business vision, but then I create this environment, so then I multiply the autonomy. So it's not really like it takes away, but you just leave it in a different way.
Okay. So being very clear about the purpose, communicating it very well, I guess is very important.
Absolutely.
The vision, the storytelling, and then kind of replicating, like making sure that this model behavior is replicated.
Exactly. Well summarized.
So, talking about people, how important is hiring for a startup, you would say?
Very, very important, I think. All the founders out there, they will agree with me. It's essential. Who you hire, especially in the beginning of a startup, and your first hires, they shape the DNA of your business, of your startup, right? And I always said that first 10 or 20 hires, they are they are the co-founders. They're the founders and co-founders of your startup, of the startup journey. They drive your culture, they drive the space and everything that comes afterwards. So especially those 20, the first 20 are super, super essential for a startup, yeah.
Mm. And what do you look for? I mean, then perhaps it makes sense to ask, what do you look for in those first 15 to 20 people? What competencies do they have to have?
A lot. So if I would describe a little bit an entrepreneur, I think this is how I also, just derive the description of an entrepreneur into the first hires. They all have to basically bring these entrepreneurial different skill sets which starts with being extremely adaptable and surviving in the ambiguity of a startup environment. It's because there is so much uncertainty in a startup, and you need to be just not only comfortable, thriving in this environment. So if you have that helps a lot. The other thing is for sure, problem-solving skill is a must-have. So no matter in what role you take on in a startup, you always have to find solutions. So if you need to have this creative mindset to find the solutions, but at the same time be resourceful, right? Because you have limited resources, limited time. So how to solve a problem with those criteria. And I feel entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial people, they have that, and that's what makes them successful. What also matters is, I would say, this constant need, or not only need, but the want to learn and grow, because startups, they change all the time, right? You iterate, you fail, you learn, then you grow. And if you naturally have that as a skill, or not even a skill, but a personality trait, that also makes you a good entrepreneur. To wanting to basically grow, also to learn and to find, new ways how to do it, and then thrive also in that environment. I think that is it. And the last one, which I also think one of the most important things, and I've been talking about that since my first days as an entrepreneur, is ownership, right? And it always has been in every a set of values that I write, is ownership. Ownership for what you do. So I think it's so important. So that's why I call the first 20 the founders of a company, because everybody, they contribute so much. They have a lot of responsibility in the beginning, and they can shape a lot, right? So you need that kind of a mindset, somebody that, takes ownership and is driven by the outcome, and the outcome is important to them. And they don't shy away of taking initiatives and driving things forward. Yeah.
Yeah, ownership and accountability, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They come a little bit hand in hand also. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you don't know, okay, or if you never think I was responsible for it, also in the bad moments, I think it's also linked to the more neuroplasticity related traits that you look for, like learning and growing. So if you never are aware of what you did wrong, how can you improve on that as well?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's very, very interlinked.
Sense of awareness, yeah, to know what didn't work for you, and then how can you improve.
Yeah.
And just learn from that, absolutely, yeah.
For sure, there are always externality factors.
Yeah.
We're not always lucky, and not everything depends on us, but I find it so much more empowering when you say, it's up to me. It starts and ends with me.
But I think for the accountability, a little bit, it's also the leadership responsibility to create an environment where they promote or even celebrate failures, right? And so people know it's okay to have mistakes or to do mistakes, but then grow from them and learn from them. And it's surprising once you've communicated that also to people that have maybe never worked in a startup before, and they come from a corporate environment, or from environments that, this perfect mindset has been always established, and they're used these, the specific way of doing things, and then they come in a startup, and that's something that I've also realized at Snacks in the early years, when as soon as I told them it's okay, like just go for the failures, they were like, oh, I can. So then then they're more, right? Because they know it's okay, so it's celebrated, it's promoted and welcomed. And I feel like this can come from the leadership. This can come also from the environment, and then you can reinforce that within somebody, and it doesn't have to already be there in the candidate.
It's awesome, and the way you explain it, and the way that I lived it as well, working at the venture builder, all those skills that you're talking about, all these aptitudes, are so relevant in the world today, where everything changes every day. So problem solving, flexibility as well, accountability, it's great. Talking about corporate, in general, many startups are reluctant to hire people from corporate. How do you see it? How has your experience been on that?
I think I understand where they're coming from. So there is this myth in startups also with some people or founders that they think you can not hire from corporates. You just need to hire people that has startup experience. And I don't agree with that approach, because honestly with Snacks, one of my best hires were coming from corporates. And talents and people from corporate, they can bring certain things to your startup, that can add a lot of value, be it project management skills, be it working under pressure, hitting deadlines, bringing frameworks, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel again. So there's a lot of advantages that come with hiring people from the corporate. But I think what is essential is you need to really assess whether they know what they're putting themselves into, or like where they're getting into, right? So you need to really ask yourself, are they expecting the same kind of structures like they used to in corporates? Are they expecting the same budgets and resources? Because you will not have that, right? Are they motivated because of the startup environment? Are they adaptable? Are they thriving in uncertainty, or are they going to break because there is this ambiguity within the startup environment? So those are the important questions you, as a founder, if you're hiring somebody from the corporate, you need to ask. If somebody brings those things, then, matched with the experience and rigor that they learned in corporates, that will make great candidates. So personally, I would rather hire somebody like that from a corporate than, let's say, somebody that worked at a startup for a long time, is burned out and looking now for more, structure.
Right. Yeah. And I think you said something very, very interesting, like just, innovate where it makes sense. Don't make everything from scratch, right? Not every process needs to be, you said, don't reinvent the wheel every time. Like, clearly you're innovating a lot with Monix, right? But there are certain things which have been done for many years, and if it's been successful, there's no need to do everything anew.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's great. You told me a little bit like how you select the first 15, 20 people, and I think it's probably more intense when you select the co-founders.
Yes.
As well. So
I think this is, it's a big topic, also something I have not, I don't have the solutions for, because with Snacks it was different, right? We hired the co-founders because also it was a spin-out out of this venture studio. We hired the co-founders from the market. I mean, we've published the job profile, and then we've interviewed them. And probably a lot of startups are still doing it, when they're looking for a late co-founder to join their startup. So for me, it's a big question. How do you find the right co-founders, and where do you find them, and how do you interview them? I think there is not a one-size-fits-all approach. But what is very essential in finding the right co-founders, or let's say filtering or scouting the right co-founders, is you need to, so we always speak about this, that you need to have complementary skills, right? Different backgrounds, that makes a great team. But then at the end of the day, it comes down to, are you a fit as a personal fit? Are you cultural fit? And you need to know each other. It's like dating someone. So, you have this phase of getting to know, to see whether you're aligned on the values, on the mindset, on the perspectives, on the visions. And that comes, you can figure that out in a way in the beginning a little bit just by spending more time with each other. So outside of the interview process, like go spend time, go on a hike together, have dinners, go get drunk together, and just find out who you are as humans also first, and then anything else, I mean, for me is secondary when it comes to co-foundership. So that's how probably I would vet whether you have the right co-founder or not in the beginning. But then again, I think what matters is that you give yourself this trial a couple of months to see, to work together without like committing already fully on the journey, right? But and that's what I did also with Monix, with my co-founder, when we didn't know each other before, right? It's not like we were friends for 20 years. So we said, let's assess, let's give each other 3 months. We see, are we a fit? And then you decide, you want to date, you want to get married or not. So this is how it works.
So then in those 3 months, you were already like working together?
Absolutely, yeah.
Before deciding, and it's like a mutual decision, right?
Yeah.
Because also for the other person.
Yeah, I mean, you can even make, clear structure goals out of these 3 months. What do you want to find out, and what will be the decision, and then be honest about it and say, like, after 3 months it's a go or no go, and then you decide. But then again, there are a lot of startups or co-founders, they know each other for 20 years, or they know each other through a old company, they've worked together. So there is really like not a rule, but if you're looking really, so this approach is more if you're like, let's say, hiring somebody that you don't know, or like looking for somebody outside in the free market. That's how I would do it. Yeah.
Take your time, like in dating.
Exactly.
It's very important to take your time, for sure. Maybe can you say, is there something right now that you see startups, because you also advise startups, right? As well, you advise female entrepreneurs.
Especially early stage and first-time founders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in terms of when they have to hire, when they have to cross that line, what do you see that they're not doing right? What do you see that they could improve on?
Not doing right,
or what could they do better when it comes to hiring in startups, specifically for startups?
So I think, in terms of hiring, and I mean in general, nowadays there's so much information out there, so you as a founder, you can educate yourself about everything, how how not to fall into the same pitfalls as other startups. There is so much knowledge out there, so I believe that helped us in the last years to improve how we are doing things, in startups and in entrepreneurship, and there is so much knowledge there, and whatever I say now, somebody has already figured it out, I'm sure, and a lot of startups, they know better now, they do it right. So I can tell you from my own experience, so what did I do maybe wrong in the beginning, and what did I learn also through my experience with my first business, Endline, and then with Snacks, and what I'm trying not to do with Monix, is in the beginning, because you are limited in resources, you think you can't afford really senior talents, right? So a lot, and I still see this mistake is done by a lot of other first-time founders or early-stage startups, is they hire interns as their first hires, or they hire juniors because they think this is what they can afford. But then the problem is, also in our case, was then you spend a lot of time of explaining and micromanaging and shaping somebody into the role that can cost you a lot of money and time. So it is actually, at the end of the day, can become more costly than just hiring the right person from the beginning. And I would do it differently now. And I think it's hard to build a business, because also the beginning of a business or startup is very, very challenging. You need these also expertise, and you need a little bit the confidence of people to really drive things. And the interns is hard, because interns you still need to manage, or even juniors if it's their first job after university. So this is a misconception in a lot of times done. And then the other thing is also what happens a lot of time is post-funding. If you get a big funding, seed or Series A or even pre-seed, you go and and have this rush of hiring, and you hire like a lot of people because you think growth or even productivity or scale means you need the people and you need to scale the team. But and a lot of the time the problem is, so you hire 10 people or 20 people, and then you know become these little organizations, and you basically become you lose the speed that made you successful in the first place, because then you're busy with really micromanagement, with a lot of coordination, right? Meetings. So one big challenge for startups, no matter what size they are, is always to know what is the right and correct team size. And there is no real answer and one formula for that. And it's something you have to reassess over and over, because as a startup and as a founder or as a leader and co-founder team, you don't want to be understaffed and then burn out your team. Mm-hmm. It's dangerous for your journey, right? And you don't want to be overstuffed and then lose the speed. So that's the challenge basically. And I don't have the answer, and it's something that we need to, everybody they need to keep reassessing what is the right team size, what are the roles we need.
Absolutely. I've seen companies lose sight just because of a couple extra hires. It's changed the dynamics completely and became like a coordination effort.
And maybe in corporates, it doesn't matter that much because they have other basically dynamics. But in startups, 1, 2, 3 people even more or less can make such a big difference in a lot of things. So yeah, it's a very crucial, I would say, the team size that maybe we don't pay much attention to still.
Awesome. So, Lida, if Monix changes the world in 10 years, which I hope it does, because I think it will have a very powerful, it will be a very positive impact. What does that world look like?
In 10 years from now?
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe, and I'm convinced that in 10 years, hormone monitoring will be something like a tracker for calories,
mm-hmm.
and your sleep. Everything that we are measuring at the moment, I have the Oura Ring that measures my temperature, my steps, my calories, my sleep. That hormone monitoring will be exactly the same. So it's a preventative, it's a wellness product in the market. Women can buy it, they can wear it, they have their hormonal profiles on their phone. It pushes preventative care, actually personalized care forward. And clinicians, they actually, hormonal monitoring becomes just the norm. It's clinicians can use or will use instant hormonal data to, decide on the treatments. IVF success rates will increase because we will have optimized timing and personalized timing. Hopefully also menopause. The term of menopause is going to change because, women will get hormone therapy based on their individual hormone profiles. And then I really hope that in 10 years, we have basically closed the massive data gap in hormonal health, and we have built enough foundation to, have discoveries or started discoveries for other hormonal conditions such as endometriosis, polycystic ovary syndrome, and a lot of other spaces. But I think most importantly, that's what we spoke in the beginning, this topic of you don't know what's happening inside your body. Hormone is this black box that nobody understands, that has finished, and we understand finally, what is happening inside woman's body, and then we have the data. The women have the agency and the power of their own data, so they become also in the driver's seat. They can manage, they can take conversations with their clinicians, with their doctors on eye level, be part of the decisions for the treatments. So yeah, that is hopefully the picture in the future.
I like it. I like the vision of an empowered woman that goes to the doctor, has all the data with her, and all the things and many more, like any illness that you can think, that many of which are affected by hormones. So that's brilliant. So Lida, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. It's been a pleasure to see you again after some years and see what you're doing. And I wish you a lot of success for Monix. I think it will have a very positive and powerful impact.
Thank you so much also, Elisa, for having me here. It was really a blast talking to you, seeing you again, catching up. And also thank you for giving the platform for these topics. They're so important. and it's helping us as well. So you're contributing into that as well. So really appreciate also you having us here, and I also wish you all the best with your new journey, because you've also decided to start your own business. I mean, you're already doing your own business, so that's great.
Yes, and you're helping in the knowledge sharing for people to hire better. So super happy to have had you here. Thanks again.
Thanks.